Mages across Tamriel hold one particular name above most with the highest of esteem. This name is Vanus Galerion, and it was given to one of the most influential mages in the history of Tamriel. Vanus Galerion was a legendary Altmer mage, serving in the Psijic Order during the Second Era before leaving and subsequently founding the Mages Guild. His legacy lives on through the guild, which to this day is dedicated to the collection, preservation, and distribution of magical knowledge all across the continent. The guild aims to use this knowledge to serve the citizens of Tamriel to use magic responsibly and for good. Vanus Galerion's greatest plight, and the catalyst for his many achievements, was the notoriously malevolent mage known as Mannimarco. Their rivalry would push the boundaries of the arcane arts, and it would fall upon Galerion's shoulders to prevent Tamriel from plummeting into darkness. In this video, we'll be giving you a concise insight into the life of this fabled mage. Vanus Galerion was born under the name Trectus, and his birth wasn't inherently noteworthy. He was the son of a minor nobleman, and was a mere servant on the estate of Lord Gynnas of Solicit on Ker. Lord Gynnas did not allow common labourers and their families to be educated, yet Trectus's father had defied the Lord and taught himself and his son to read. Literate servants were a danger to the exploits of the higher class, and the Lord had outlawed all forms of literature outside of his keep. But this prohibition had not stopped the lowborn from seeking knowledge, and smuggling efforts kept books and scrolls in circulation while the Lord remained oblivious. Maybe Gynas's head had been so far up his own arse that he couldn't pay attention to the activities of the servants. That all changed, however, when Trectus was 8. The smugglers were caught. Trectus's father was among those who were caught, and his punishment was cruel and sadistic. His father's corpse was left hanging for weeks for all to see during the hottest summer Solicit on Ker had seen for centuries. Trectus fled the horrors 3 months later and made it all the way to Alinor. He was still but a child, and he didn't make it in good shape. He was found by a band of troubadours close to death. They nurtured him back to health, and one of them noticed the boy had immense promise due to his intelligence and sophistication. When he was 11, the troubadours took him to the Isle of Artaeum to join the Psijic Order. Ichesis, the magister of the isle and head of the order, took him on as a pupil and renamed him Vanus Galerion. It was during this time, when Vanus trained in the order, that he met Mannimarco. They were the two most gifted apprentices the order had ever seen, and were both destined for greatness. Honouring his father's memory led Vanus to use his talents with purity, but Mannimarco was corrupted by the dark arts, especially necromancy. When Vanus caught wind of Mannimarco's sinister studies, he confronted the misguided mage under the Sapora Tower and said, "Your wicked mysticism is no way to wield your power. Your studies must cease, because you only bring horror to the spirit world." Mannimarco laughed, refusing to heed Vanus's warning, and he proceeded with his evil deeds. Vanus warned the Psijic Order of the virus growing in their ranks, but like Mannimarco, they failed to listen to him. The Order sent Mannimarco on a quest onto the mainland, and Vanus was floored by their foolishness. He knew that the necromancer would recruit followers for his own malevolent cause the moment he hit the shores, and said, "You have found a wolf," and sent the beast to flocks of sheep. Some sources say the Order exiled him to the mainland, while others suggest that they simply tried to cover for their mistake of actually sending him there, trusting him to remain loyal to the Psijic way. Either way, the threat that was brewing was clear to Vanus Galerion, and he knew he had to take action into his own hands. It was this realization that led to the eventual creation of the Mages Guild. Disenfranchised by the Psijic Order's stubborn and belligerent ways, Vanus left the isle and began assembling a consortium of magic users from all across the Somerset Isles. He didn't take into account the financial or social status of those he took in, only their magical potential, which seems fitting considering his humble beginnings. He opened the first official headquarters in Firsthold, deciding that risky, even volatile magical experiments should be conducted far from densely populated areas. Vanus took note from his father's teachings and concluded that magical knowledge should be made available to anyone who sought to use it for good. He wasn't going to take part in excluding the lower classes. He was the first mage to adopt this mindset, as prior to this, magic was reserved for the aristocracy and the intellectuals. Galerion was brought before his former master and the king of Firsthold to explain his current actions, which were causing quite a stir in the Isles, and after some convincing, he was allowed to continue with the development of his inclusive guild. In order to protect the guild, Vanus also created the Order of the Lamp in the Second Era, year 230. This group of knights accepted only the most skilled fighters to serve as guardians. While the Mages Guild grew across Tamriel, so too did Mannimarco's cult of corrupted wizards and witches. This cult was known as the Order of the Black Worm, and Mannimarco was their king. Those who joined his ranks brought him all kinds of wicked artifacts, and the necromancer would absorb their essence and increase his power. Mannimarco transformed into the embodiment of all things crooked and corrupt. Despite his new endeavours, Vanus never forgot about Mannimarco. It was his impurity that sparked Galerion into action in the first place, identifying the many faults of the Psijic Order. So when Mannimarco reared his ugly cadaverous head, Galerion was ready to react. He assembled his mages and his knights and marched north to face the threat in hopes of crushing it before Mannimarco could tighten his shadowy grip on Tamriel. Galerion's army of loyal, honest fighters were met on the field by legions of necromancers with malice in their dead eyes. Galerion pleaded with Mannimarco one last time before the opposing forces clashed, hoping in vain to pry the Dark Wizard from his trance. He said, "Surrender, Worm King, hand over your artifacts and their power to me, and you shall live until dead sees fit." But this didn't appease Mannimarco, who had long since dismissed the possibility of death. The necromancers conjured foul figures from oblivion to fight Vanus's army, and they responded with beams of light, frost, and lightning. Before the battle was through, Mannimarco turned himself into the world's first Lich to gain immortality, but that didn't prevent his legions of necromancers from falling at the hands of Vanus's army. The threat was exterminated, but with Mannimarco's escape, the roots remained. Galerion died in the battle, knowing the fate of Mannimarco. Despite his extensive efforts, he couldn't quell the evil completely. Subscribe to FudgeMuppet and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Also, follow us on Twitter to interact with us directly. Links can be found just below in the description. Thanks for watching, guys. I've been Drew, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.